Okay, so we've been kind of sidling up to talking about the Heart Sutra, at least I have been, and um, taking our time, or taking my time with it, I should say. Um, maybe because it's so dense and in some ways hard to come to terms with. I so a lot of people have react adversely to the Heart Sutra for a variety of reasons. Some people dislike it because the meaning is elusive and doesn't seem to make sense. Some people don't like chanting or don't like liturgy. Some people experience it as conflicting with their personal or cultural values. So I thought I'd talk a little about ways to engage with the Heart Sutra. First of all, it's fine if you don't like it. It's not, you're not required to like it. You're not required to believe it either. And so, um, it's interesting, whatever it is, whatever you're experiencing in relation to the Heart Sutra is of interest. You can start there. You can start wherever you are. And just have some curiosity about the experience of not liking it. Where do you experience that in your body? What do you do when you don't like something? Shut it out, criticize it, leave, refuse or decline to engage, reject it? What is your way of responding to things that are difficult or unpleasant or contradictory in some way to you? Is there a story about your reaction? Look deeply and follow the thread of associations and memories that might be coming up for you. All of this is information for you about how you encounter life. When you inquire in this way, you're taking the backward step that we talk about so frequently into awareness taught by Dogen Zenji, asking, what is this? What's going on? What's going on with me? That's our practice. So, and then of course, feel free to talk about it with me. That's practice discussion, which is also part of our practice. And I encourage you to take advantage of practice discussion and just email me and we'll set up a time to talk. The Heart Sutra is packed with information, and it is the heart of our you could say understanding. And so we'll unpack it and look at what it's talking about. But that's just one way of encountering it. And it's not necessarily the best way, if there is a best way. But our Western minds require us to do that, to try to understand intellectually. But there's more, as we'll see. So just as, you know, to reintroduce it, you'll recall that we've talked about Avalokiteshvara and the setting of the Heart Sutra in a conversation between Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra, the Buddha's most accomplished and wise disciple, who also in our Mahayana tradition and in the tradition within which Zen, the stream in which Zen arises, Shariputra also represents a school of Buddhist thought that the Heart Sutra corrects. So Avalokiteshvara perceived that all five skandhas in their own being are empty and was saved from all suffering. And he goes on to say, Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness, and emptiness does not differ from form. That which is form is emptiness, and that which is emptiness form. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, formations, and consciousness. So what he's saying is that that the skandhas, which we will unpack in a minute, are empty. So let's stop in here and unpack just the first line of this, because just the first line is packed. So I will, before we do this, which is going to be, we're going to talk about this and explaining, I'm going to intellectually explain what the skandhas mean and so forth, but let's try to remember that the paramita of wisdom, which is what the Heart Sutra is talking about, is based in practice. And it is based in our practice of zazen, both on and off our seat, not in intellectual thought and philosophy. But we're going to talk about it from an intellectual standpoint to begin with, because we inhabit an intellectual paradigm that we've inherited. So we kind of have to know what the words mean. Okay. So Avalokiteshvara, who's deeply in zazen, that's what it means when it says practicing deeply the prajna paramita. It means that he's in deep, deep meditation. Realizes that all 5 skandhas are empty. Skandha is a Sanskrit word, and it has been translated as heap or aggregate or gathering, and more recently as stream, as a skandha is a stream, let's say. And the Buddha identified 5 skandhas as kinds of pillars of analysis or points of view regarding the experience of being human, the complex experience of being a human being and of having a self. But Kaz Tanahashi, who is a translator and teacher and Zen teacher. So I just got a message that I just saw a message to remind everyone to mute but I think everyone is muted. So anyway. So Kaz Tanahashi is the one who proposes the term stream for and in a translation that he and Roshi Joan Halifax from Upaya Zen Center in Santa Fe, in their translation, they use the term stream. But historically, apparently, and the reason that they use that word is because everything is always changing. So they sort of say, instead of a heap, which seems like something that's static, they use the term stream to acknowledge the constant change of everything. And so this analysis will seem a little bit exotic or strange to our ears, but just for one moment, consider the possibility that our conceptual framework of description of human experience might also be exotic and strange to someone encountering it from another point of view. In fact, the way that we think about things and analyze things is within a paradigm. So this is asking us to jump out of our paradigm and look at human experience from another point of view. So the 5 skandhas are form, sensation, or sensation, the experience of sensation as in feelings, what it feels like, what things feel like, and perceptions, and I'll go into detail about each one of these, mental formations, and finally consciousness or discrimination. And they all work together. They're not separate from each other. So they're all constantly interacting. Form refers to matter or phenomena, what exists, my body, your body, things that I can perceive with my senses. but form is actually only how things appear to me. So form, so everything that I can sense is what I can sense. But it's everything that you can sense is what you can sense. So there's no actual form that has permanent and definite existence outside of our ability to experience it. When we perceive, we name. So form is a means by which the external the external experience can be known. And actually, when we name, this is what society calls education. And those of you who've raised children will recognize that much of raising a young child is teaching them names for things, right? So teaching them names for the objects of perception, and as if those objects were static. And actually, introductory classes in any subject that we study are actually vocabulary lessons, if you think about it. You learn a new vocabulary for each science, for each profession, and so on and so forth. So form is a way of establishing meaning, but it is not a separate reality. It's entirely relational. And there is a way in which we have an agreed upon code. So when I teach a baby nose, this is a nose and this is your nose, we have a code that we agree on, but that's all it is. I mean, for all I know, the baby could be seeing something entirely different than what I'm actually seeing, but we've agreed on that this is a nose, and that's what we teach. So, I don't know if this seems really strange, so just bear with me. So the next skandha is feelings or sensation, and this skandha is the interface between inner mind and outer mind, between what I'm telling myself about something and what my mind is receiving. It's both sensory input and the immediate evaluation of it as positive, negative, or neutral. Next is perception, described as a kaleidoscope of conceptual combinations, a framework that allows us to objectify our experience. And it's the qualitative experience of so-called objects and the process of naming them. So it isn't the names, it's the process, the naming process. The fourth skandha is, mental formations. And we can think of mental formations as processes of mind, including ways that we've experienced the past and that are available to deal with the present. These mental formations are the habitual bases of action. There's actually, in the typical Buddhist way, there's an actual list of mental formations, of which there are 52, considered to be 52, including things like intelligence, belief, shame, confidence, indolence, pride, anger, envy, sloth, doubt, and so forth. All those kinds of things, the ways in which the mind determines how to assess and how to act. And finally, there's consciousness, or in which we tend to think of as awareness, but in the skandha analysis, it's considered discrimination. And this is the ability to be both aware of something and to distinguish differences. So consciousness is considered to have a definitional limitation that is somewhat less than the kind of awareness that we talk about in the great mind of Buddha. So Shariputra would have been intimately familiar with this skandha formulation of personhood and would not have needed this part of the Dharma talk. He believed in, is thought to have believed in the ultimate reality of the skandhas. But Avalokiteshvara, after listing the skandhas, throws them out. He says they're empty, that they have no own being. He's saying, Shariputra, you know a lot, or you think you know, but you don't really understand. The skandhas are not separate from one another. The 5 streams work simultaneously, receiving information and responding through the constantly changing aspects of existence. They can't be isolated from each other. Everything we think of as ourself or as a thing is empty. It's flux, it's flow. That's all. It's flowing. Sometimes I think of it as a gerund, for those of you who are English teachers. Ing, 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 ing. It is flowing. I am flowing. You are flowing. All things are flowing. In this sense, they don't have being in the way that we think of it in our ontological construction. They are empty, entirely dependent and relational. So this first statement of Avalokiteshvara is the bedrock of Mahayana teaching, addressing suffering. So it's not just a philosophy. It's a because of this realization which contains boundless compassion, he offers this teaching to us so that our suffering may be relieved. How does the realization of emptiness, otherwise known as the prajnaparamita, relieve our suffering? Well, if there's no self to protect and defend, there's no self to suffer. Easy, right? There's only boundless interaction. The experience of emptiness is of non-duality, non-distinction, no boundary, and no distinction among the various aspects and values of things. Zazen gives us this opportunity because it is inherently selfless and non-discriminating. So once we bring our attention back to our breath, we're choosing not to discriminate, but just to be there. And this practice opens us to boundlessness and non-separation in the infinite present. So I'll be talking a lot more about emptiness so that we can kind of approach it and grasp it a little bit better, though nothing that I can say, no words that I can use can actually say much of anything about it. But so that'll be, fun to try to get a handle on it. But what this does is points to a way of thinking about the self that's very different from our way of thinking about the self. And I think that in a way helps us a little bit unglue from our strongly held need to protect and defend every aspect of ourself. And that doesn't mean that we don't care for ourself. We do, we care more than anything. We care deeply, but we care from a very different point of view. So that's what the Heart Sutra is really about. So that's really all that I have to say. And I would very much enjoy hearing your thoughts